It's a deeply human thing, right? This desire to know what's just around the corner. Farmers, centuries ago, worrying about what their wheat would be worth at harvest. It's the same feeling investors have today, trying to navigate these crazy volatile markets. It's this fundamental drive to manage uncertainty that led to some of the most powerful tools in all of finance. And they all started with one single huge question. I mean, just think about that for a second. How do you do it? For most of history, it was all guesswork, right? A bit of intuition, a lot of experience. But what if you could swap all of that out for the pure, cold certainty of mathematics? That's the dream that financiers have been chasing for decades, and it all begins with a simple promise.
At its heart, it really just boils down to an agreement. So picture this. A farmer is worried the price of wheat is going to crash by the time she harvests. At the same time, a baker is worried the price is going to shoot through the roof. So what do? They make a deal. They agree today on a price for that wheat to be delivered in 3 months. Boom, the farmer has her price locked in, the baker has his cost locked in. They've just created a futures contract. They tamed a little piece of tomorrow.
Okay, so once you have these contracts floating around, the next big question just naturally pops up. What's a fair price for one of these things? And this is where the real dreams started to take shape. The dream of finding a single, perfect mathematical formula that could spit out the exact correct price and get rid of all the guesswork for good. So one of the earliest answers was the cost of carry model. And the logic here is, well, it's kind of beautiful in its simplicity. The idea is that the price of that wheat in 3 months should just be what it costs today, plus all the costs of holding onto it, storage, insurance, the interest you're losing on the money tied up. And if the futures price ever drifted away from that number, traders could swoop in, make a risk-free profit, and their actions would nudge the price right back where it belonged. It was a really elegant theory. And this whole quest, this hunt for the perfect formula, well, it hit its absolute peak with the Black-Scholes Model. This thing was a complete game changer for pricing options, which are kind of like cousins to futures contracts. People saw it as the holy grail. I mean, a mathematical key that could literally unlock the price of risk itself. The financial world was never the same. But, and you knew there was a but coming, right? There was a huge problem. These gorgeous, elegant formulas were built for a perfect, clockwork world. And the real world, well, it's messy, it's chaotic. And this is where that beautiful dream started to show some serious cracks.
Okay, just take a look at these assumptions for a second. I mean, come on. Constant volatility? When has the market ever had constant volatility? No transaction costs? Predictable price movements? We all know that real markets are wild. They're unpredictable, they're full of friction. The models were basically describing a fantasy world that just doesn't exist. And when you ignore that gap between the neat model and the messy reality, the consequences can be absolutely catastrophic. Because so many people were using this model, when the market did something the formula couldn't predict, the system went into a tailspin. This wasn't just a classroom theory anymore. This had a massive, world-shaking impact. And listen, this isn't just some problem from the 80s. A really detailed study of German futures contracts from 2013 found that even in our super-fast, super-efficient modern markets, there is still this persistent little gap between the price the model says should exist and the price that actually does. Now, 0.07% on average, that sounds like nothing, right? But the key is that it's always there. It's a constant whisper telling us the model isn't the real world. And this right here illustrates the difference perfectly. So, in theory, the price difference between the futures contract and the actual thing should shrink in this perfect, smooth line, hitting zero right at expiration. But in reality, oh man, look at the data. It's a noisy, jagged, spiky mess. It gets to zero in the end, sure, but the journey there is total chaos, just like the market itself. So you've got to be asking yourself, if the models are all flawed and the market is so chaotic, how does the entire system not just, fall apart? Well, it turns out the financial world built a completely different kind of solution. It's not based on perfect prediction, but on building something strong enough to survive the chaos. So let me introduce you to the unsung hero of the modern financial system, the Central Counterparty Clearinghouse, or CCP. It's a brilliant idea. Instead of having two parties just trust each other to follow through, the CCP jumps right into the middle of the trade. It becomes the buyer to the seller and the seller to the buyer. You're not trading with some stranger anymore, you're trading with the CCP. So how does it work? Let's break it down real simple. Step 1. A buyer and seller agree on a trade. Step 2. Through this neat legal trick called Novation, the CCP tears up the old agreement and sticks itself in the middle.
Step 3, it's now the official counterparty to both of them. And step 4, this is the magic. It guarantees the trade. It makes sure everyone has enough margin or collateral to cover any potential problems. It's basically a giant shock absorber for the entire system.
And this visual just makes it crystal clear. Without a CCP, you've got this fragile, tangled spiderweb of promises. If one person defaults, it can set off a domino effect, a total cascade of failures. But with the CCP, you get this clean, strong hub-and-spoke system. All the risk gets channeled to the center, where it can be watched, managed, and contained. It brings order to what could be absolute chaos.
But look, just because we built this incredible safety net doesn't mean that original quest is over. Oh no, the dream of finding that perfect formula, of finally being able to price the future, it is still very much alive. It's just using some seriously powerful new tools.
The new frontier is where things get really wild. We're talking about deep learning and something called rough volatility models. Basically, instead of pretending that volatility is some smooth, predictable line, these new models embrace its true, chaotic, jagged nature. Researchers are using AI, teaching computers to learn directly from the market's messy behavior, trying to finally close that gap between the elegant theory and the wild reality.
And that really leaves us with this final thought, doesn't it? This whole story reveals this incredible tension. On one side, you have that relentless human desire to predict, to control, to find that perfect formula for tomorrow. And on the other side, you have this incredibly pragmatic approach of just building a system that's strong enough to survive tomorrow, whatever it brings. The goal might not be to perfectly predict the future, but to be strong enough to not be broken by it. And the real answer, it seems, is finding the right balance between the two.